Hey everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. I have several updates to share about Trump's Oathkeeper insurrectionists. It's time for a special episode of Where Are They Now?
Matthew Bledsoe was arrested.
Patrick Montgomery was in court.
Jonathan Manapa will stay in federal custody.
No, I don't take responsibility at all.
So, big news about numerous Oath Keepers. Here's the deal. First is the news that broke last night. 44-year-old William Wilson of North Carolina is the third Oath Keeper to plead guilty to the charge of seditious conspiracy. Wilson is not one that I've profiled yet in a video short because the FBI hadn't even mentioned him until now. So keep an eye out for that. Wilson's plea and his cooperation agreement states that he conspired with the Oath Keepers founder, Stuart Rhodes, to, quote, oppose by force the lawful transfer of presidential power. And Oath Keeper Brian Ulrich had pleaded guilty to the same crime last week. He was the second one. Ulrich was also named in the January 6th seditious conspiracy case. As with the others, Ulrich admitted that he had conspired with other Oath Keepers to, quote, prevent, hinder, and delay the execution of the laws of the United States governing the transfer of presidential power. And Ulrich also admitted that the group used encrypted communications and that they armed themselves with weapons and that they were, quote, prepared to use force to stop the transfer of power. And in addition to the conspiracy charge, Ulrich also pleaded guilty to obstructing an official proceeding. So 2 felonies. So each of those crimes comes with a sentence of up to 20 years. However, federal sentencing guidelines are a lot lower. So they range from 63 to 78 months. And, because they're both cooperating, Ulrich and Wilson are probably going to see a very reduced sentence. As long as they don't blow it, as long as they don't play any games. Now, Judge Amit Mehta is presiding over these cases. And at one point in the plea hearing for Ulrich, he had to ask him if he needed to take a break to compose himself, because reporters say that Ulrich was really emotional during this hearing. And they said that he was heard crying during the teleconference. So it's looking more and more like Stuart Rhodes is going to be left holding this flaming bag of dog shit for Donald Trump, because even more news surfaced last night, which implicates Rhodes in this seditious conspiracy plot. According to several news outlets, it was revealed that Rhodes contacted someone in the White House on January 6th, and he was trying to get Trump to basically unleash his and other groups to use violence at the Capitol. They were just looking for his approval. In a court filing that was related to William Wilson's arrest and his case, it states that while Wilson was present, Rhodes called, quote, an individual over speakerphone. And Wilson, quote, heard Rhodes repeatedly implore the individual to tell President Trump to call upon groups like the Oath Keepers to forcibly oppose the transfer of power. So we don't know yet who this person was that Rhodes called, but the person apparently refused to allow Rhodes to speak directly with Trump, thank God. And according to the court filing, quote, after the call ended, Rhodes stated to the group, I just want to fight. So womp womp and thoughts and prayers for what's going to happen next with Stuart Rhodes. And, I'd tell him to sleep with one eye open in prison, but anyway, the next update I have to share involves Arizona Oath Keeper Edward Vallejo. You guys may remember he was just recently arrested, and he may have attempted to obstruct justice in regard to his January 6th case. So Vallejo, as you may remember, he is one of the Oath Keepers who's accused of traveling to DC with weapons. And he didn't actually go to the Capitol, but he was one of those waiting across the river from the Capitol at the hotel. And these were the people who were holed up in a hotel on the border of DC because it's illegal to bring the weapons to DC. So they were in Virginia where they could have the weapons. And this was the Oathkeeper's quick reaction force, this group of people waiting with the weapons. So they were allegedly waiting for word from someone at the Capitol who would give them the word and trigger them and say, you need to get over here ASAP with the weapons. Had that call come in. So, if Stuart Rhodes had gotten a hold of Trump, who knows what would have gone down. So following Vallejo's arrest, he received a call in jail. And, they record all of these calls. So the man who called Vallejo hasn't been publicly identified, but prosecutors know who it is, and they obtained a recording of the conversation. So the man shares with Vallejo some of the evidence the prosecutors have against him. He told Vallejo in part, quote, they have security camera footage of you with a dolly with two of the black bins with yellow lids. Then he mentioned some of the other items in the bin, but they weren't really of consequence. So the real key issue here is those bins. And here's why. Later that same evening, Vallejo then spoke to his wife on a call, which of course was also recorded. During that call, Vallejo instructs her to, quote, go through everything, especially my satchel in the black container with the yellow top. I think you will understand. I don't want anything that is going to jeopardize anything. All right. You'll see what I'm talking about. Make sure you look very good through everything. So Vallejo later told investigators that, those containers just had 200 pounds of food in them. So Vallejo is trying to get released from jail pending his trial, but the prosecutor is using these phone calls against him to argue that he needs to be held until trial. In a motion to the court, the prosecutor wrote, quote, if the bins really did contain food, then there would be no need for Vallejo to direct a third party to remove objects from them the day he learned the government was aware of these bins. Further, if the bins really did contain food, there would be no need for Vallejo to cryptically describe the contents of the bin by saying, you'll see what I am talking about. And then they went on to say, quote, in addition to being a danger to the community, Vallejo appears to be obstructing justice even while held and communicating on a recorded line. If released, there are certainly no conditions that can assure that he would not attempt further obstruction. Vallejo's attorney, of course, has denied these allegations, and he's saying, no, he's not trying to hide weapons. Instead, he's alluding to the idea that Vallejo may have had some sort of drugs or something. He said it could be something else due to his, quote, history of back pain and distrust of the medical establishment. So we'll see what happens with that. Now, the final and quick updates that I have are about Oathkeepers Kelly Meggs and his wife, Connie Meggs. Kelly Meggs was also charged as part of this conspiracy, and his attorney was Jonathan Mosley. However, Mosley lost his license to practice law in the state of Virginia. This happened last month. This was because he apparently violated rules of professional conduct. And he's now having a really hard time finding a replacement for Meg's case. Mosley told the judge, quote, I've already asked everybody I know in the past, so I don't know anything further except we're trying to generate some leads and talk to them. I mean, who could have guessed that no reputable attorney would want to represent people accused of seditious conspiracy? Anyway, it sounds like Meggs may have found someone on his own, but they're not going to have much time to get up to speed because he's supposed to go to trial on July 11th. Now, as for his wife, Connie, she wasn't charged with conspiracy, but she's also awaiting trial on various other charges. She's out of jail. He's in jail. And apparently she and 5 co-defendants were supposed to go to trial last month on April 19th, but the defense attorneys jointly filed a motion to delay the trial because of, quote, an unprecedented amount of evidence. So they're getting hit with just massive amounts of evidence from the prosecutors. So the judge reluctantly agreed. And unfortunately, he said the earliest he can reschedule is November 28th. So it's going to be a while. A few quick takeaways I have from all of this. First of all, for everyone on the right who keeps screaming about how some people haven't been charged yet, they must be feds or undercover feds, that's obviously not true, at least not in all cases. Not that there weren't any undercover feds there, but not everyone was an undercover fed. As we see in this case of William Wilson, it took the FBI 15 months to make these charges against him, or at least to make them known. So sometimes they're working on cooperation deals and they don't want the other co-defendants to know about it. They could have some of these people wearing a wire to gather evidence. And remember, not every informant is an undercover agent. Those are two different things. An informant that could be somebody informing on others to save their own ass. Not because they believe that their co-defendants did anything wrong or they're on the side of law enforcement. They're doing it for self-preservation. The other right-wing myth that this dispels, in my opinion, is that there's either no evidence to support their allegations or it's just not being handed over. Why are they not turning over evidence to the defense attorneys? There's obviously too much evidence against these people if you're having to delay trials, and they hand it over when it's legally required to do so. These two things are related, in my opinion, because they're not going to hand over evidence that could include names or situations that will out their informants, not until they're ready to tighten the noose. So they don't know what they're talking about. They're trying to make something up out of thin air to make their case because they know that they're wrong. So, it's all a red herring to try to distract people and get people confused and thinking, oh, maybe there isn't a case. Maybe there is no evidence. It's BS. Anyway, guys, I will let you know when I hear more. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Take care. I'll talk with you soon.